Hello students, welcome back to biology class. In this class, we are starting with a new concept, that is viruses, viroids and lichens. Here firstly I would like to say, in Whitaker's five kingdom system of classification, there is no mention about some acellular organisms like viruses, viroids and lichens. Isn't it? I have explained you all the five kingdoms of classification and I have given examples to respective kingdoms, but I have nowhere mentioned these examples under any of the five kingdoms. So the reason why these organisms are not included in any of the five kingdoms that you will understand later after knowing about these organisms. So here in this class, firstly we will discuss about viruses. So this class is very important and it is very important and necessary to know about viruses, because in the present day situation we are all facing the problem of COVID-19, isn't it? And you all know that COVID-19, it is a viral disease caused by coronavirus. Then what else you know about coronavirus? Then why you will say that it is a virus? How can you say that it is a virus? Why not a bacteria? You will say that scientists have been already identified it as a virus. Yes, I will agree, but as a biology student, we should have some more knowledge about viruses. We cannot simply say that it is a virus. Here we should know on what basis it has been identified as a virus and what are the properties a virus can have. All these things we should know. So in this class you will get answer for these questions. We will be studying what are the properties of virus and what are the chemical composition, structure, everything we will study in this class. And all of us, we may have suffered with the illness of common cold, isn't it? So we all have been experienced the illness of common cold. But do you know that a common cold is also caused by a virus? Just find out the name of the virus which causes common cold and what are the effects of virus on us. Just find out. Remaining we will discuss in this class. As I already mentioned, viruses are not being included in the classification. So the viruses, they did not find a place in classification. So why they are not included in classification? Because they are not truly living. They are not truly living. What it means? You know, living and non-living. Here, viruses are not truly living. Generally, we have been classified all living organisms into five kingdoms of classification. So we are classifying the living organisms. If this virus is considered as a living, then it can be included in the classification. And you know, all living organisms will have some unique properties. If all the unique properties will be exhibited by the organism, then it is considered as a living organism. So we classify the living organisms. But here it is not considered as a truly living. Why? Because the viruses, they do not have cell structure. They do not have cell structure. That is very important. You know, cellular organization or cell structure, it is one of the unique property of living organisms. But these viruses, they do not have cell structure and they are acellular or non-cellular. As they are acellular, they do not have cell structure. As they do not contain cell structure, they are not considered as living. That's why we will say they are not truly living. If they do not have cell structure, then which type of structure the viruses will have? So instead of cell structure, the viruses, they have a inert crystalline structure. A inert crystalline structure. Inert meaning chemically inactive, and they are crystalline structure. So they look like crystals. Like as you see salt crystals, likewise these viruses will appear like a crystalline structure, or they looks like crystals outside the living cell. So that we will know later. So they do not have cell structure and they have a inert crystalline structure. So as they look like crystals, can we call them as non-living? Can we consider them as non-living? No, we cannot consider them as non-living. Even though they do not have cell structure, if they look like crystals, if it remains crystalline only, then it can be considered as non-living. But when the virus will be infecting the living cell, whenever a virus which infect the living cell, in that living cell will be the host for the virus. Host refers to in which organism the virus will be taking shelter. So if for example a virus will be infecting us, we are the host organism for the virus. So when the virus which infects the living cell, so in that living cell it will take up the living machinery or the host machinery. With the help of host organism, the viruses can able to replicate themselves. They can able to replicate or they can able to multiply, and they can able to kill the host organism. They can able to kill the host organism. That is very important. So a non-living thing cannot do all these things. A non-living crystal, it should be remain as it is only, then it is considered as non-living. But this crystalline structure, it is a crystalline structure only outside the living cell. But when it enters into the living cell, it can able to multiply. That multiplication, replication, it is also one of the living property. That's why we cannot consider them as non-living also. It is very important. We cannot consider them as a truly living, or we cannot consider them as non-living also. Then we should know some brief history about the viruses. So what exactly a virus means, who discovered, how discovered, everything we should be able to know. So now we will discuss a brief history about viruses. Actually, the name virus, it means venom or poisonous fluid. The name virus meaning venom or poisonous fluid. This was given by Pasteur, scientist named as Pasteur, in the year 1880. So what exactly a virus means? A virus means venom or poisonous fluid. That was given by Pasteur. But the viruses were first discovered by a scientist named as Ivanovsky. Ivanovsky in the year 1892. The viruses were first discovered by Ivanovsky in the year 1892. But how he discovered? Here you should know a disease called as tobacco mosaic disease. Tobacco mosaic disease. It is usually observed in a tobacco plant. And Ivanovsky, while working on this disease, while working on tobacco mosaic disease, he found that this disease is caused by a microbe. He did not say that it is a virus. He just mentioned this disease is caused by a microbe or causative organism which is smaller than bacteria. He said that they are smaller than bacteria. How he can able to say that they are smaller than bacteria? Because those microbes can able to pass through a bacteria-proof filters. See, the bacteria-proof filters can able to filter the bacteria. So these organisms as they are smaller than bacteria, then only they can able to pass through the filters. So as they can pass through the filters, he said that they are smaller than bacteria. Likewise, he discovered viruses. So Ivanovsky, while working on tobacco mosaic disease, he found that it is caused by a microbe which is smaller than bacteria because they can pass through bacteria-proof filters. Later, another scientist named as W. Bazarnik. M.W. Bazarnik in the year 1898. So Bazarnik, he extracted fluid from the infected tobacco plant. Infected tobacco plant means in the tobacco plant where we can find the disease. So in that plant, tobacco mosaic disease can be seen. That is the infected tobacco plant. From that infected tobacco plant, he extracted some fluid. And when it is injected to the normal healthy plant, in that plant also, that fluid containing this microbe can able to cause the disease. Try to understand. Here, the fluid which is extracted from the infected tobacco plant can cause disease in a healthy plant. So that fluid, Bazarnik named it as Contagium. Let me read it here. So the fluid which is extracted from the infected tobacco plant is called as Contagium vivum fluidum. So this was given by Bazarnik. After the extraction from the infected tobacco plant, the fluid has been named as Contagium vivum fluidum, which means infectious living fluid. Infectious living fluid. So the fluid extracted from the infected tobacco plant is named as Contagium vivum fluidum, which means infectious living fluid. Later, another scientist, W.M. Stanley, in the year 1935, he extracted viruses. Till now, they are extracting the fluid, that fluid containing virus. That's why that fluid can able to cause the disease, isn't it? So here, in that fluid, W.M. Stanley, he extracted viruses from the infected tobacco leaf. So from the infected tobacco leaf, he extracted viruses in crystalline form or in the form of crystals. He extracted viruses in the form of crystals and he named it as TMV, that is a tobacco mosaic virus. So tobacco mosaic virus is the virus which causes tobacco mosaic disease in tobacco plants. Try to understand. So the fluid extracted from the infected plant, and it is called as Contagium vivum fluidum by Bazarnik. From that fluid, viruses have been extracted from the infected tobacco leaf in the form of crystals, and they have been named as TMV, and this was done by W.M. Stanley. So this is the brief history about the viruses. Now we'll see few more things about viruses. Already I told you the viruses are acellular, or they are non-cellular organisms, or we can say they are non-cellular and they are ultra microscopic. They are ultra microscopic. They are smaller than the bacteria. So bacteria can be visible under microscope. So they are, even we can say, sometimes they are not visible under the compound microscope also. So here they need a well-developed microscope or well-equipped microscope. So they are acellular, ultra microscopic, and they are infectious particles. Infectious particles. There is one microscope, that is electron microscope. Under electron microscope, the viruses can be visible. That's why they are ultra microscopic and they are infectious particles. Generally, we will call remaining as organisms, but here we are not calling them as organisms. They are infectious particles. They are non-cellular, ultra microscopic, and infectious particles because they always cause an infection in the host organism. That's why they are infectious particles. Then they are obligate parasites. They are obligate parasites. Generally, a parasite which will be taking shelter in the host organism, it usually causes infection or disease to that organism. Here, obligate parasite. Generally, the parasites are classified into facultative parasites and obligate parasites. So, what are facultative parasites? So, facultative parasites, they can be cultured in a dead medium. As you see in case of saprophytes, the saprophytes which are growing on dead and decaying organic matter. So, such parasites, such saprophytes, they are considered as facultative parasites and they can be cultured at dead medium. But these obligate parasites, they must and should need host organism. Without host organism, they cannot complete their life cycle. Without host, they cannot complete their life cycle. That's why viruses can able to replicate or can able to survive only in the living cell, but outside the host organism, they cannot cause any infection or nothing. So these are obligate parasites, and I told you they are completely inert. They are completely inert or chemically inactive outside the specific host. And these viruses, they can be crystallized. They can be crystallized in the form of crystals. They can be crystallized in the form of crystals. So this is very important. So these viruses can be crystallized in the form of crystals, and these crystals, they largely comprising of proteins along with nucleic acids. So which are the nucleic acids? They are usually DNA and RNA. So the crystals mainly comprising of proteins along with nucleic acids. That's why we can consider a virus as a nucleoprotein. It can be considered as a nucleoprotein because viruses are largely made up of proteins and nucleic acids. Hence, it is considered as a nucleoprotein. And they have a genetic material. They have genetic material. It is either DNA or RNA. So, all viruses, they definitely contain a genetic material. It may be either DNA or RNA. You know, DNA, it is a deoxyribonucleic acid. RNA, a ribonucleic acid. So, they usually contain DNA or RNA. Then, so as they contain the nucleic acids and proteins, they are called as nucleoproteins. Generally, the plant viruses means the virus which infect the plants. So plant viruses. So these plant viruses, they generally contain single-stranded RNA. So RNA may be double-stranded RNA or single-stranded RNA. So here plant viruses, they usually contain single-stranded RNA. ssRNA refers to single-stranded RNA. But animal viruses, they may contain single-stranded RNA, double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. So this is very important. The plant viruses usually contain single-stranded RNA, but animal viruses contain either single-stranded RNA, double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA. If you want to know examples, so the plant virus which contains single-stranded RNA is tobacco mosaic virus. So the tobacco mosaic virus which infects the tobacco plant, so that contains single-stranded RNA. And the animal virus which contains single-stranded RNA is ribovirus. And the animal virus which contains double-stranded RNA is reovirus. And the animal virus which contains double-stranded DNA is pox virus or coliphage, etc. And very interestingly, the viruses, they not only infect the plants and animals, even the viruses can infect the bacteria. The viruses can able to infect the bacteria. The virus which infect the bacteria, they are called as bacteriophages. This is again important. What are bacteriophages? Bacteriophages are the viruses which infect the bacteria. Virus which infects the bacteria. bacteriophages. I told you the viruses, they not only infect the plants and animals, even they will infect the bacteria. Such viruses are called as bacteriophages. They are called as bacteriophages, and bacteriophages generally they contain double-stranded DNA as genetic material. The best example is T4 bacteriophage. T4 bacteriophage. We will be studying the structure of T4 bacteriophage in this chapter only. So you will come to know all about this. So this is the plant viruses, animal viruses and bacteriophages. So the genetic material they contain. So later we should know some more thing about viruses. See, viruses, they have both living and non-living properties. They have some set of living properties and non-living properties. That's why viruses are considered as the connecting link between living and non-living things. It is very, very important. The viruses are the connecting link between living and non-living things. Living and non-living things. Now we'll see which are the living properties exhibited by the virus and the non-living properties exhibited by the virus. So firstly we will discuss the living properties. Living properties of viruses. So already I told you, so if they are living, they should have some living properties. Here all viruses, they contain genetic material. They contain genetic material, either DNA or RNA. Yeah, generally all living organisms will have genetic material. So that's why this will be the living property. So all viruses, they have genetic material, either DNA or RNA. And this genetic material, it is covered by a protein coat called as capsid. Protein coat called as capsid. So the genetic material, it may be DNA or RNA, that is covered by a protein coat called as capsid. And this, the viruses, they show growth and multiplication. They show growth and multiplication within the living cell or within the host organism. That is very, very important. You cannot simply write it as they show growth and multiplication. You cannot write like that. You must and should write they show growth and multiplication inside the host or inside the living cell. That is important. Again, they show variations due to mutations. See, mutations are nothing but the sudden heritable changes during the transfer of genetic material genes from parents to offsprings. So usually one set of chromosomes will be transferred from parents to offsprings. At that time there will be heritable changes will be taking place in the genes. So such sudden heritable changes are called as mutations. Due to mutations there will be variation. Variations are nothing but individual differences. See, for example, why we are not exactly similar to our parents? Because of the mutations have been taken place. That's why we have variation. We are different from our parents because of mutations. So even the viruses, they show mutations and variations. Then there are obligate parasites. Obligate parasites, they must and should require host organism in order to complete their life cycle. And finally, they have antigenic property. They have antigenic property. Antigens are nothing but the foreign particles. See, whenever if any dust or any other thing when enters into our body will treat that as a foreign particle or antigen. So antigens are the foreign particles that will stimulate our immune system. Even the viruses, they have antigenic property and they can able to cause infection to the host organism. Either they may cause infection to the host organism or they can able to kill the host organism. So these are the living properties exhibited by the virus. Firstly, they have genetic material, DNA or RNA, they have protein coat called as capsid, they show growth and multiplication inside the host organism, they show variations due to mutations and they are obligate parasites and they have antigenic property, can cause infection or disease in the host organism. Now we will discuss the non-living properties. So non-living properties of viruses. So what are the non-living properties? The first and foremost non-living property is they do not have cell structure. Do not have cell structure. As they do not contain cell structure, they do not have cytoplasm and nucleus together is called as protoplasm. So absence of protoplasm. As they do not have cell, we cannot find the nucleus and cytoplasm. That's why absence of protoplasm. And they do not show growth and multiplication. Growth and multiplication outside the host. Outside the host. This is important. They do not show growth and multiplication outside the host. They show growth and multiplication only within the host organism. So this is important. Do not show growth and multiplication outside the host. And they are completely inert. They are always inert outside the host organism. We should mention. They are inert outside the host. And they can be crystallized. They can be crystallized and they are extracted in the form of crystals and they can be stored in bottles like any other chemicals. How chemicals are stored in the bottles, likewise the viruses can be crystallized and those crystals can be stored in the bottles. And these viruses cannot be killed by any antibiotic drugs. So whenever virus is infected, you cannot simply take an antibiotic drug. That antibiotic drug cannot able to kill the virus. They can be killed only when it is exposed to UV radiation, that is ultraviolet radiation. And because of the absence of movement is also one of the non-living property. So all these are the non-living properties. Both are very, very important. You may get a question about either living properties or non-living properties. Now we will discuss the structure of tobacco mosaic virus. So firstly we are talking about the tobacco mosaic virus only. So this is the typical tobacco mosaic virus which causes a disease in a tobacco plant. That disease is called as the tobacco mosaic disease. And this structure of the tobacco mosaic virus, it can also be called as tobacco mosaic virus is also called as tobacco virus. It can be called as tobacco mosaic disease, tobacco mosaic virus or tobacco virus. So this one, the tobacco mosaic virus, it has a cylindrical structure. A cylindrical or helically arranged. Helical arrangement is like this. It is a cylindrical helical structure with 300 nanometer length and 18 nanometer diameter. So when you measure the length and diameter, it is a 300 nanometer length and 18 nanometer diameter. And I told you it has a cylindrical structure. So this cylindrical structure, it is made up of a protein coat. That protein coat is called as a capsid. So protein coat is called as a capsid and this capsid contains helically arranged 2130 protein subunits called as capsomeres. These are protein subunits. The protein coat is called as capsid and that capsid comprising of helically arranged 2130 protein subunits called as capsomeres. So all these what you are seeing, these are the protein subunits are capsomeres. And they have a genetic material which is single-stranded RNA. Only this much we can able to study about the tobacco mosaic virus. So tobacco mosaic virus, it has a cylindrical or helical structure with a 300 nanometer length and 18 nanometer diameter. The protein coat, a cylindrical structure having a protein coat. That protein coat is called as a capsid, and a capsid consisting of helically arranged 2130 protein subunits, and these protein subunits are called as capsomeres, and they have a genetic material which is a single-stranded RNA. So this completes the structure of tobacco mosaic virus, and we need to discuss the T4 bacteriophage that we can discuss in the next class. But this class is very important. You should know each and every point about the virus. We have discussed the living and non-living properties of the virus. So you can apply all these properties to coronavirus also. So now you can able to understand a little bit more about the coronavirus. So what are the living properties a coronavirus having, and non-living properties, everything you can able to understand better. So now we will discuss few objective questions related to the class. So firstly, in 5 kingdom classification of Whitaker, some acellular organisms are not included. They are option A viruses, option B viroids, option C lichens, option D both A and B. So here option D is the correct answer, both A and B. Viruses and viroids are non-cellular. Along with non-cellular, lichens are also included, but here they have mentioned the acellular organisms only. So acellular viruses and viroids, that's why both A and B is correct. Next question, virus is option A completely non-living, option B inert crystalline structure outside the living cell, option C cellular organization, option D one of Whitaker's classification. So your option B is correct, inert crystalline structure outside the living cell. The next question, virus, the name means option A venom or poisonous fluid, option B acellular form, option C non-cellular form, option D the connecting link between living and non-living. You know virus meaning it is venom or poisonous fluid. The next question, virus, the name was given by Ivanovsky, Pasteur, Whitaker, Becerril. Here the name was given by Pasteur but discovered by Ivanovsky. So that's all about today's class. Remaining questions you can able to solve, and in the next class we will start up with the new concept that is the structure of T4 bacteriophage. Thank you.